James Garner finally tells the truth about Randolph Scott. James Garner was born as James Scott Bumgarner on April 7, 1928, in Norman, Oklahoma. He grew up in a small town during the Great Depression, a time that helped shape his strong work habits and his simple, grounded personality. Garner's childhood was tough. His mother passed away when he was only 5 years old, and his father, Weldon Bumgarner, had a hard time keeping things stable. James spent much of his young life moving between different relatives and doing random jobs to help support himself. These early struggles gave him a quiet strength and a deep understanding of others that would later show up in his acting. Before he thought about acting, Garner served his country with honor. When he was 16, he left school and joined the Merchant Marine. Later, he served in the U.S. Army during the Korean War, where he received 2 Purple Hearts for his brave actions in battle. The discipline and bravery he showed as a soldier naturally carried over into his later career, where he often played honest men who stood up for what was right, even when things got difficult. His time in the war left him with permanent scars, both on his body and in his mind, but it also gave him a deep sense of humility and a refusal to make heroism look glamorous, something that set him apart from other Hollywood leading men. Garner's start in acting happened almost by chance. After coming home from the war, he moved to Los Angeles and worked different jobs, including modeling for print advertisements. One day, while helping a friend with a role, a talent agent noticed him. The agent saw his good looks, calm manner, and natural charm. He started taking small parts in television and movies, learning acting through experience instead of formal classes. His big break came in 1957 when he was cast as Brett Maverick in the popular TV series Maverick. The show, with its smart mix of humor, adventure, and Western style, made Garner a star overnight. Unlike typical Western heroes, his Maverick character was funny, avoided fighting unless he had to, and always had a clever response ready, a mirror of Garner's own real-life personality. After Maverick became successful, James Garner became one of the most popular stars of the 1960s. He easily moved into movies, acting in many different types of films, from romantic comedies like The Thrill of It All, 1963, and Move Over Darling, 1963, with Doris Day, to war movies like The Great Escape, 1963, where he performed just as well as Steve McQueen. Garner's relaxed charm made him easy for audiences to relate to, while his ability to show subtle emotions earned him praise from critics. Unlike many actors of his time, he stayed away from the typical Hollywood ego, choosing instead a more down-to-earth and honest approach to fame. People who worked with him often called him a true gentleman, professional, kind, and refreshingly modest. In the 1970s, Garner captured the public's attention again with The Rockford Files, one of TV's most famous detective shows. As Jim Rockford, a funny private investigator who preferred to talk his way out of trouble instead of using violence, Garner changed what a TV hero could be. The show's combination of humor, intelligence, and realism won him an Emmy Award in 1977, and fans loved him for it. The role was physically tough, and Garner did many of his own stunts, often getting hurt in ways that would affect his health later. Still, his commitment never weakened. He was known for his professionalism, rarely taking a day off despite ongoing back pain and exhaustion. Garner's later career showed his range and grace. He appeared in highly praised films like Murphy's Romance, 1985, which earned him an Academic Award nomination for Best Actor, and The Notebook, 2004, where his touching performance as an aging husband caring for his sick wife moved audiences around the world. He also came back to television for several successful projects, including Maverick and the Rockford Files reunion movies, proving that his charm and appeal lasted through the years. Garner was also a respected supporter of actors' rights, often speaking out against unfair studio practices and fighting for creative freedom in Hollywood. James Garner's personal life was marked by a lasting love story that showed the same warmth, steadiness, and quiet strength that audiences loved in his on-screen roles. He was married only once, to Lois Josephine Fleischman Clark, a lively and charming woman who stayed his partner for nearly 60 decades. Their meeting was pure Hollywood luck. Garner met Lois at a party in 1956, and from that very first night, something just clicked. He later remembered that he was completely drawn to her energy and spirit, saying, "We went to dinner every night for 14 nights. I was just absolutely crazy about her." Their romance was as intense as it was quick. After just 16 days, on August 17, 1956, they got married. At a time when fast romances were often doubted, their marriage went against expectations and proved surprisingly lasting. Garner often joked about marriage with humor and honesty, comparing it to military service. Marriage is like the army. Everyone complains, but you'd be surprised at the large number of people who re-enlist, he once joked. The comparison wasn't bitter, but showed a deep understanding of commitment and pushing through, qualities that both he and Lois shared. Their relationship, like any long marriage, had its problems, but it was based on loyalty and real affection. Lois, who practiced Judaism, brought a different cultural and spiritual view to their home life, but the couple's mutual respect went beyond those differences.
Garner, who was never known to be strict about religion, welcomed her beliefs with an open heart and found comfort in the peace and balance she brought to his often busy life as an actor. When they married, Lois was already a mother to a young daughter from a previous marriage. Her daughter Kim was 9 years old and at that time recovering from polio, a disease that had left lasting problems for many children of that time. Garner took on the role of stepfather with compassion and patience, giving stability and kindness to both Lois and her child. It was one of the many parts of his character that matched the quiet goodness of his on-screen roles. He never looked for attention for his good actions, but people close to him often talked about his generosity and sense of duty. In 1958, Garner and Lois had their own child, a daughter named Greta Gigi Garner, born on January 4, 1958. Gigi would grow up to become successful in her own right, later working as a producer and philanthropist. Garner's deep love for his family was clear throughout his life, and he often spoke of his daughters with pride and tenderness. The Garners' marriage lasted for nearly 58 years, a rare achievement in Hollywood, where relationships often fall apart under the pressures of fame, long separations, and public attention. However, their life together wasn't always smooth. The couple went through 2 periods of separation, the first lasting 3 months in 1970 and a longer one in 1979. During those times apart, Garner admitted that both he and Lois needed space to grow as individuals, but there was never a feeling that their bond had truly broken. "We just needed a little distance," he once said, "but we always found our way back." True to his word, the couple got back together in September 1981, reaffirming their commitment to each other. Throughout his long and famous Hollywood career, James Garner rarely spoke badly of anyone. Known for his easygoing charm and gentlemanly personality, he preferred to stay out of the drama that often surrounded the movie business. However, when the subject of Randolph Scott came up in later interviews, Garner surprised many with his honest remarks. "Randolph Scott," Garner once said, "was one of the most private and misunderstood men in Hollywood. People thought they knew him because of his screen image, but the real man was something completely different." With this statement, Garner gave a glimpse into a side of Scott that few ever saw, one shaped by discipline, quiet strength, and a code of behavior that seemed to come from another time. Garner, who became famous decades after Scott had already established his reputation as one of Hollywood's greatest Western stars, admired him both as an actor and as a person. "When I was a young actor just starting out," Garner remembered, "Scott was already a legend. He carried himself with dignity, like someone who knew exactly who he was. There was no pretending, no showing off, just a real sense of presence." Garner noted that Scott didn't need to raise his voice or make big gestures to earn respect. His calm confidence and understated power were enough to take over any scene. To Garner, Scott represented an ideal of manhood that was disappearing from Hollywood. A man of few words but great integrity, whose actions spoke louder than his fame ever could. But Garner didn't avoid pointing out that Scott was also a man surrounded by mystery. He kept his private life locked away, he said. Nobody really knew what went on behind that calm exterior. You could work with him for months and still not feel like you truly knew him. Garner believed that this intense privacy sometimes led to misunderstandings. Rumors often followed Scott about his personal life, his relationships, and his supposed distance from others, but Garner dismissed much of the gossip. People made up stories because he didn't give them anything real to talk about. He didn't play the Hollywood game, didn't chase publicity or fame. He was happy to let his work do the talking. Garner also admired Scott's professionalism on set. He showed up on time, knew his lines, and treated everyone from the director to the crew with respect, Garner said. That may sound simple, but in Hollywood, that kind of consistency is rare. Scott believed in doing the job right every single time. Garner saw this as a result of Scott's upbringing in the South, where good manners and discipline were deeply important values. He brought that Southern sense of honor with him everywhere, Garner noted. Even when he disagreed with someone, he handled it quietly, with class. When asked about Scott's legacy, Garner was thoughtful. Randolph Scott wasn't the loudest or the flashiest actor, but he left an impression that never faded, he said. He didn't need tricks. He just stood there, tall and steady, and you believed every word he said. That's real acting. Garner also revealed that Scott's influence went beyond the Western genre. He defined what it meant to be a leading man, he said. Strong, dependable, a man of principle. Those were traits audiences respected. And I think a lot of us, whether we realized it or not, tried to live up to that. However, Garner also admitted that Scott's distance sometimes created an emotional wall between him and others. He wasn't the kind of man you'd sit down and have heart-to-heart talks with, Garner remembered. He didn't wear his feelings on his sleeve. Maybe that's why his characters always seemed so serious. That was him. Yet Garner didn't see this as a weakness. Instead, he saw it as part of his authenticity. He didn't pretend to be open or emotional just to please people. He was who he was, and that's something I respected deeply. In the end, Garner's comments about Randolph Scott were not only a tribute, but also a quiet revelation. If there was one word to describe him, it would be steadfast. He didn't change with the trends, didn't bend under pressure. He lived by his own code and never wavered from it. Coming from a man like James Garner, who himself was known for integrity and humility, those words carried great weight. Through Garner's rare glimpse into Scott's character, audiences were reminded that behind the serious cowboy on the silver screen stood a man of remarkable discipline, dignity, and depth. A true Hollywood original whose quiet strength inspired generations that followed.
James Garner's passing in 2014 marked the end of one of Hollywood's most lasting love stories, coming heartbreakingly close to what would have been his and Lois Clark's 58th wedding anniversary. The timing of his death added a sad layer of meaning, as it highlighted the depth of their nearly 6 decades together, a rare achievement in an industry often known for brief relationships and broken marriages. Garner and Lois had shared a bond that survived the turbulent nature of fame, the pressures of constant public attention, and the passage of time itself. Married in 1956, after only 2 weeks of dating, their relationship became proof of love's lasting power and the simple truth that sometimes when two people meet, they just know. In interviews, Garner often spoke lovingly of Lois, calling her the love of his life. And those who knew the couple said that despite his tough, easygoing screen image, he was completely devoted to her in private. Even as Garner's health began to decline in his later years, Lois remained his anchor, caring for him quietly and lovingly at their Brentwood home, protecting his privacy from the outside world. When James Garner died on July 19, 2014, at the age of 86, it left a hole that Lois would carry for the rest of her life. Though she lived another 7 years, those who were close to her said that she never truly got over losing him. For Lois, the man who had been her partner, confidant, and companion through the highs and lows of life, was gone, and the silence he left behind spoke volumes. Her days reportedly became quieter, filled with treasured memories of their shared experiences, from his early television success in Maverick and the Rockford Files, to his later achievements in film. She had always been happy to stand slightly in the background, letting her husband shine. But those who knew them said she was his greatest source of stability. Garner himself had once admitted that Lois's steady nature balanced out his sometimes fiery personality, and that her groundedness was a big part of why their marriage worked so well.
Lois Clark Garner passed away peacefully on October 21, 2021, at the age of 98. She had lived a full life, but those final years were marked by the absence of the man who had been by her side for most of it. In the end, their love story became one of Hollywood's most inspiring examples. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. Through separations and reunions, through fame and quiet moments at home, through health and sickness, James and Lois proved that true love isn't just about the grand romantic gestures. It's about showing up, day after day, year after year, and choosing each other over and over again. James Garner left behind a legacy that went far beyond his impressive body of work. He showed audiences what it meant to be authentic, humble, and true to yourself in an industry that often demanded the opposite. Whether he was playing the charming Brett Maverick, the clever Jim Rockford, or the devoted husband in The Notebook, Garner brought the same qualities to every role: honesty, warmth, and a quiet strength that never needed to shout to be heard. And in his personal life, he lived by the same principles he portrayed on screen. He was a devoted husband, a loving father, a loyal friend, and a man who never forgot where he came from or the struggles that shaped him. If you enjoyed learning about James Garner's incredible life and his honest reflections on Randolph Scott, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more untold stories from Hollywood's golden age. Share this video with anyone who appreciates real talent, genuine love stories, and the kind of Hollywood legends who earned respect through character, not just fame. And let us know in the comments, what's your favorite James Garner role? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss our next story. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.